to just have a quick comfort break. I'll put a timer on the screen and I'll see you back here shortly. Okay. All right, welcome back, everybody. So we're going to move on now to our next topic, which is all about getting started with Powerapps. So specifically, what we're going to be looking at here is just reintroducing you and discussing some of the core concepts relating to Powerapps that apply more generally. And then we're going to dive in and look at the three different types, or the three manifestations of our different apps. Looking first of all at our Canvas applications, our model-driven apps, and also give you an introduction to Powerapps portals as well. I'll have a couple of demos in between all of this in order to hopefully explain some of these concepts in a bit more detail. So let's turn first of all to introducing Powerapps and discuss really, what is the primary business value behind implementing these different solutions. We'll look at a particular case study involving Powerapps, which is a particularly good use case for this technology. And we'll see how we can go about and create an app very straightforwardly using existing data that may exist in our environment. So we've touched upon some of these concepts already, but it is worth just re-emphasizing again. When we're talking about Powerapps, we're really talking about this low no-code platform that we can use to build business applications of any particular type. So typical sort of scenarios where we're going to be considering using Powerapps will be maybe if we've got an inefficient or maybe a legacy business process that we're looking to modernize. It could be that we are still working to a paper-based process or using things like Excel workbooks quite extensively for what could be a very crucial business process. It could be that we just want to ensure that we can follow our particular business processes from different types of device like PCs or mobile phones. Particularly as we've learned over the past 2 years, that is more essential than ever these days. We're not, we're only just hopefully now starting to return to the office, but over time, it's probably going to be more and more likely that we're going to need to accommodate for hybrid type working scenarios, and therefore, those paper-based processes don't really sort of fit the bill anymore. For a sort of post-COVID sort of state of existence. So what we get with the Powerapps is the ability to create apps. Bring in the data from the sources that we are working with and be able to, have that, have the ability to sort of tailor that to suit our specific situation. Because, at the end of the day, no two business or organization is the same. We all do things just ever so slightly differently. And Powerapps can do a pretty good job in terms of accounting for all that. Within Powerapps, within Canvas apps in particular, we've got this concept of this sort of formula language known as Powerfx. It's very similar to our Excel based sort of formulas. So we can do things like aggregations, we can sum, we can do text-based conversions, various different things like that. And Powerfx is used quite a lot extensively within our Canvas apps. And as part of the demonstration, we'll just show you what it can do as part of that. And over time, Powerfx is only going to become more and more important when it comes to the platform as a whole. So it's in our interest to learn and actually know about this particular formula language, because it's only going to, increase it's only going to make it, it's going to make it a lot more easier for us to work with all aspects of the Power Platform in the future. So, the idea is that, if we've got a business problem, then the Powerapps is going to be our ideal tool that we can turn to as part of this. And we want to really just ease you into this. We're not really sort of assuming any sort of previous knowledge or assumed knowledge as part of this. It's really just introducing you to the concepts, introducing you to the different types of apps that we've got available. So those three types that we touched upon already are Canvas, our model-driven apps, and our portals. And also as well showing you how we can maybe start to think about using things like artificial intelligence capabilities via AI Builder within our particular apps. So Canvas apps, as the name implies here, these are best for situations where we're wanting to, build an application potentially from a blank canvas. So we get a lot of control over the general sort of, I should say general, we get full control over the whole look and feel of the application. So if we want a button at the top up there, we can have it. If we want to have some text over there, then yep, you've got it. If we need to have different and varied component types across the entire app, then our Canvas app is going to be able to suit that particularly very well. And we've got the options here being able to adjust the screen size of this particular app of our apps to suit different sort of form factors. And typically what we'll find is our Canvas apps will be well suited for either sort of tablet or mobile based devices. They can work quite well as part of maybe a desktop based application, and certainly some of the apps that we build and support for our end customers are primarily used from a desktop based standpoint. But what you get with Canvas apps is the ability to do things like access underlying device capabilities. You've got support for offline mode, various different things like that. So they typically will make them more suited for a mobile based scenario if we wanted to use them that way. We can connect up to a variety of different data sources and mix and match that. And that's one of the other main advantages of Canvas apps over our other app types in here. As we mentioned already, we can use this sort of Excel-based formula language, the Powerfx formula language, to be able to add on the functionality as we desire. And what we get here is full flexibility over how our entire application looks. So on the one hand, that's really great for us in terms of building out a solution. We can really sort of fine tune it to, for example, the branding guidelines of our organization or to other sort of considerations. But it does mean that we have to spend quite a bit more time thinking about and developing our particular application. It's not going to be, a 5-10 minute exercise necessarily to get the app looking how we want it to. So more control, but potentially more effort to get to our end goal and destination. In comparison, our model-driven apps are actually very easy to set up and configure. We'll do a demonstration of this in a short while, but literally you can set up a model-driven app within 5-10 minutes, and you don't need to worry about setting up a lot of the things which within a Canvas app you'll have to go through and build out. So things like, for example, a button to create a new record, a save button, the ability to export data out into Excel. All of this is included as standard within a model-driven app. We just go in, we configure the elements that we want, and in most cases we'll have an application ready to go within 5 to 10 minutes. So great for those agile based scenarios. Great if we're just wanting an application, maybe like a back office type application, where we're not too concerned or too precious over the look and feel of it. And also particularly great if we are using Microsoft Dataverse, because the model-driven apps and Dataverse go hand in hand. A model-driven app must always be connected to Dataverse to be able to expose out and use the underlying data within there. And some of the concepts that we would use that we've already talked about when it comes to Dataverse, things like our relationships and business rules and columns, all of those will be exposed out within a model-driven app. So I've really sold up model-driven apps there, but it is worth just keeping in mind some of the drawbacks and disadvantages of this. So as we've noted already, model-driven apps can only connect to Microsoft Dataverse. Okay, so it's not going to be possible to easily connect to other external data sources. Now, I choose my words carefully there. Easily, there are potentially some options that we can look at in terms of exposing out data from external data sources as tables within Dataverse. But that is a really more complex thing that we'd have to look at. We would probably have to get a developer involved. They would have to go off and write a whole bunch of C# code to be able to build all that out. So it's not going to be possible for us, looking to functionally customize the system to be able to do that. So 9 times out of 10, we're going to have to ensure that we've got all of our data sitting very happily within Dataverse. And once that's been done, we can then think about using a model-driven app. We can't bring in a SharePoint list. We can't bring in SQL Server. Only a Canvas app will support that. And likewise, and in terms of other drawbacks as well, so we've talked about how easy it is to create a model-driven app, do it in 5 minutes flat, and it handles a lot of things for us. But because of that, because it's so easy to do that, it means that we are going to be restrained in terms of how we can customize and how we can modify the look and feel of a model-driven app. A model-driven app is, broadly speaking, always going to look the same. It's always going to have the same navigation experience. It's always going to have the same sort of type of buttons at the top. There'll be some things that we can do to maybe tailor that just a little bit for certain sort of uses cases, but generally what you see is what you get here in terms of this screenshot here with the model-driven apps, and we can't really deviate too far from that. So if it is a case that we need to have that control. You know, we've got particularly sort of precious or sort of maybe fussy marketing teams who maybe want to ensure that our apps, you know, are branded, you know, to the umpteenth extent to match our guidelines. Then perhaps maybe a Canvas app could be our better candidate. And you know, we've got the Dataverse connector in our Canvas app, so therefore it's not going to be an issue to do that, but it's going to take us a bit longer to build out the app as a consequence. Then the final type of Power App we've got is our Portals app. And this was really designed for any situation where we need to start providing external user access into our Dataverse environment and into our sort of Power Platform solution. Now, when I say the word external, that can mean sort of one or two things. It could mean any user in the organization who is not a fully licensed Powerapps user. So, for example, they haven't been assigned a per app or a per user license, which would therefore allow them to work with and interact with Canvas or model-driven apps. External can also be taken to mean maybe anybody outside of the organization. So it could be maybe, you know, individuals within organizations that we are partnering with. It could maybe be our end customers that maybe go into a portal. So really our portals are going to be for those two types of scenarios where, you know, we can't within our current solution, it's going to be impossible for us to give access out to our apps on our internal tenant. Portal will give us the mechanism of being able to expose that out. We've still got the same sort of benefits and the same sort of features that we can leverage to hopefully make it easier to build out our particular application. So we get a drag and drop experience. We can add on different pages to our portal app. We can adjust the branding and the look and feel. We've got the ability of being able to configure authentication into the portal. So for example, maybe if we're doing, let's say, a customer support portal where people can go in and log cases with us, we can maybe have it as a requirement where they have to log in first, and then from there they can then go and see all of the cases that they have created or that are associated with their company in the system, and only those cases, most importantly. So, you know, generally when we're thinking about portals and also the potential uses cases, and this is very ripe territory from an exam standpoint, think about those external scenarios. Think about those ones where it's an end customer. You know, if the requirement is okay, our customer needs the ability to go on and supply information to us, then there's a very good chance that the answer will be a portal, and that will be what meets that particular requirement. So similar to Dataverse and similar to other areas of the Power Platform, we can manage a lot of different aspects of our particular Powerapps deployment using the Power Platform Admin Center. So we go into, so through there we can go in. We could, for example, you know, assign on different security roles for a particular environment. We can maybe share our apps out. We can use some of the analytics tools in the admin portal just to get a bit of a feel for, you know, how are we doing with our apps in the organization? You know, are people using the apps? Are people engaging with them in the right way? Various different things like that. For more advanced scenarios, and this will be maybe for our administrators who are coming into this for the first time, or just wanting to manage, formalize the way in which we manage certain aspects of our Power Platform, we've got a series of different sort of Powershell commandments that can be run. That can do things like, you know, getting all the apps in the organization, you know, enabling, disabling certain features, maybe even going off and creating environments programmatically. Lots of nice little options on here that maybe our administrators or developers could use. App creators typically may not use these as much because there's, you know, generally anything involving things like PowerShell technically would you know, usually require a bit more sort of detailed knowledge, but the option is there if you wanted to. What we can also do as well, and it's worth mentioning, we don't really discuss it as part of today. It's more moving into sort of PL-100 or PL-200 territory, but you've also got the Center of Excellence kit that we can use. You know, and this is a really invaluable tool that Microsoft provides us with, that we can use to sort of, you know, build the foundations for success when we're looking to adopt the Power Platform at scale. So the Center of Excellence kit has been built out, you know, by individuals who have implemented the Power Platform, you know, within their own organizations. You know, so for example, you've got, you know, Manuela Pilcher, who used to work for Virgin Atlantic, who now leads up and develops the Centre of Excellence kit for Microsoft as as a Microsoft employee. So there's a lot of great experience that you can benefit from if you are considering using the Centre of Excellence. And I would certainly encourage you just to go away, explore it yourself, see what's available in there, and it will help you in terms of, as the name implies, help to build you for success and to ensure that you're adopting the Power Platform, in a really sort of excellent way. Final thing just to mention, from a business value standpoint, when it comes to Powerapps, it becomes very easy for users across the organization to build out these different app types. So, you don't need to have detailed knowledge of things like, C# and stuff like that. It's a very sort of low barrier to entry. Microsoft sort of describe it into very much in terms of it's similar to building a PowerPoint document, from a drag and drop standpoint. And I think that does hold true, particularly when it comes to the Canvas apps. It is incredibly easy just to build something quite straightforwardly. I think, as the app sort of starts to develop, you will need to start, writing out different sort of formulas and functions to be able to do what you want it to do on there. But generally, from a design standpoint, it should be straightforward to get your app looking how you want it to be. So the ideal standpoint is that we can put this technology in the hands of our end users in the organization. We can put this into the hands of our subject matter experts, and we can get them to actually start building out these solutions and actually really solve problems themselves instead of waiting for years or waiting for months for maybe what could be overburdened or already busy IT teams from building a solution to suit to help address a particular business problem. I think the scenario that really quite excellently demonstrates all of this is the one involving Heathrow Airport, and particularly Samit Sani, who's an absolute sort of semi-legend in terms of the community, in terms of what he's done there. So Heathrow used the Power Platform extensively. They've used this to be able to deal with a lot of sort of frontline worker issues. And effectively, what Samit did, he was a security worker at the time there. He picked up Powerapps for just to try and solve a particular sort of business problem. He was able to use that to be able to build out a series of different apps. From there, things sort of snowballed from there, and the airport is using these apps and using all sorts of different capabilities in the Power Platform to help manage various different aspects of the operation of the airport and things like that. So it's a really sort of powerful story on here. It shows you the benefits of what you can do with this tool, and really in terms of how easy it can be for anybody to pick this up. Anybody can sort of use this. And in Samit's case, he went from a security worker right through to actually being on stage with Satya at one of the big partner events. So what an amazing journey for that, and I think it really does epitomize what you can do with this technology. So do after today, go away and search for this on using your search engine of choice. Heathrow Airport Powerapps. Read up about Samit's story, and it will hopefully really crystallize in terms of how easy it is, and the art of the possible when it comes to this stuff. And to help you sort of help emphasize that, let's just jump in now to a demo and show you how easy it is to build an app from scratch in the Power Platform. So I'm going to return back to the Maker portal and to the Home tab up here. And we mentioned these few different options here earlier that we're going to return back to. And what these provide us with is a jump board for us to be able to go in and actually build an app from our existing data source that we may be using. So it could be that we have an existing SQL data source, it could be using a SharePoint list, or it could be that we're using Dataverse. And what we can do is actually very quickly and easily build a Canvas app based off our existing data. So I'm just going to click on Dataverse as an example. What it's going to do is going to open up the Powerapps Studio. That'll take just a few seconds to load up. Yeah, I don't seem to be having much luck with demos today. Seems to be everything's gone asleep for the weekend. Tell you what, let's just return back, and we can try it another way, I think. Okay, let's try it again. Actually, I've just realized I'm in the wrong environment. Let's try that again. There we go. Must have fallen asleep again, perhaps. It is still Saturday morning, so perhaps it's to be expected. Okay, so we can see we've got a list of the connections over there, and specifically at the moment it's connected up to my particular Dataverse environment. So what I can do is I can just select any table that's in the environment at the moment. So maybe, for example, we want to select the accounts table, one of our common data model tables. Then what the app will do in just a matter of seconds is go in and read the underlying metadata of the app itself, and then build us out a fully functioning application that's based off the data. You know, and we can then look to maybe take this forward. This application will be suitable for you know, potentially the scenario that we are wanting to use the Power App for, and can then be sort of extended further based on our sort of requirements. So we can see here we've got just a very simple application, a 3-screened application, as we can see in the tree view over here. And within the studio experience, and this is broadly similar when we look at our model-driven apps as well, and also our portal apps, is that we always have in the left-hand side a tree view that shows us all the different sort of components in an app. That means we can very quickly select, for example, maybe that specific search icon, sorting icon, and all the different shapes. We'll always get a nice sort of WYSIWYG, what you see is what you get type experience. So you can very quickly and easily just see, you know, the impact of maybe making a change. So for example, if I was to maybe rename this screen here to, you know, my accounts, we'll see we get that real-time sort of feedback, and we get that assurance that the change is obviously going to be looking okay. We push our application out. And then finally, for each component that we select on the right-hand side, we'll have a series of different properties that we can modify. You know, for example, I can maybe change the font, I can maybe change the size of it, change position, X and Y position, all sorts of different options on here that are possible for me to modify. Once my app is ready to go, I can then hit the play button at the top, and I can give this just a bit of a test drive. So maybe, for example, I can maybe go into this existing Wingtip Toys row over here. I can maybe make some modifications to this. So maybe it's actually based in Manchester, and want to maybe give it a phone number. So 01234 545 6789. Save that like so, and then it will go off and update Dataverse with that new data straight away, and we can see it's reflected on all the screens in the app. I can maybe go in and create a brand new record as well. So maybe you just want to call this Contoso Manufacturing. Maybe they're based in Seattle, 555 1234. Save that like so. And again, the change is reflected straight away. And what's also quite nice is the app will also allow me to delete any record as well. And we'll see as soon as that's deleted, it will be gone entirely from Dataverse. We're left with just these 2 rows down here. If there's a lot of data, I can maybe just do some searching like so, and it will search on the, let's just check. I think by default, the search checks on a few different sort of properties. Let's just check how it's sort of doing this. Because what we can potentially look at doing is maybe making just a bit of a small change, just to get it working how I want it to. Yep, so we can see if we click on the gallery itself, we can see we've got a drop-down box here that shows us all of our different app properties. So in the case of our gallery, we've got an items property, and this will dictate exactly what what data is going to display in this particular gallery. And we can see in this case that we've got a rather semi-complex Powerfx formula in here written that's going to bring data in. So let's just break this down step by step. So first of all, it's going to be sorting the data by certain column values. It's going to be sorting based on the account number. The direction in which the data will be sorted is controlled via a button in the app, which is this button over here. So when that button is clicked, it's going to update a variable, sort descending 1, and then based on whether that's true or false, it's then going to adjust that accordingly. And then in terms of the data that it's bringing back, what it's going to do, it's going to do a search against the accounts table based on whatever we input into the search inbox. And these are the columns here that it's going to search the value on. So we can see at the moment it's searching the account number, it's searching address 1 city, then also the address 1 composite. So maybe we just need to add in an additional column, so maybe just the name of the account. With that adjustment made, we can maybe return back to here and we can see that now it's able to then search for that based on those criteria. If I do the same for wing, we should see that, yeah, that works like so. So, this is potentially what if you're maybe experimenting the first time, if you just need a simple 3-screened app, then this route will potentially fit your bill, and you can see how easy it was just to make a very quick change just to get the app working how we wanted to. We can maybe go a bit further as well. So maybe if we're not too partial for this particular blue color over here, maybe we just want to change it to maybe a nice, lovely green color like so, and just continue just customizing the app to suit our particular sort of look and fit, particular sort of requirements. When we're ready to go, we can then hit on the file and save button. So I'll just call this my PL-900 demo app like so. Save that. And then once the app has been saved for the first time, it's now going to be available to use within the organization. So if I was to return back to the Maker portal, click on the apps list down here. It can take a few moments just for the app to appear on here. But if we were to maybe take, for an example, let's say this app down here that's been built up before, I could then hit the play button just to run that app in the portal and maybe distribute the link out so that my users can actually use it as well. And I've also got options to be able to customize things such as, for example, who's got access to it. So if I click on the share button at the top, I can see at the moment it's just my current user account, MOD administrator, who can access that. But I can maybe look to share this out to other users on the tenant, maybe share it out to a security group, and then just ensure that everyone who needs to use this app can start to use it. So as we hopefully be able to see there, very easy and very straightforward just to set up a quick app for the first time. And the option to sort of do it from an existing data source may be prudent, based on our particular sort of scenario. What we've also got as well is access to a variety of different sort of template apps as well. So for example, we can see down the list here, we've got the ability of being able to create apps based on doing sort of leave requests. We could do maybe an asset checkout app. All sorts of different example apps on here which may be suitable for our particular requirements. And if I wanted to check any of these out, I can maybe click on the service desk one over here. Maybe just give it a name. So just call this PL-900 like so. Hit on the create button. And in a few seconds, I'll have this fully functional app that's ready to go in a sort of just a demo mode to review. And also then have the option of being able to make it my own by connecting up to my own custom data store. So it could be for this particular app, we want to connect it up to OneDrive for Business as an example. So I click on the existing link over there. It's going to go off and create a spreadsheet to store the data in there. And then we should have a fully functioning service desk application that we can start to use. It might be that maybe I want to change the data source, maybe make some other different sort of modifications to the app based on my scenario, but that's really just up to me at that point in terms of how I want to do that. So yeah, so we can see the app is ready to go. It should just take a few minutes just to refresh that, and then we should see that if I click on, if I go back to here, We'll hit play for the first time. Yeah, it's starting to populate itself now. It might just take a few moments just for it all to be repopulated. Might be that there's maybe some issues here with the properties, but yeah, we can go in and then just fix that and obviously just get the app working how we want it to. So yeah, so that is an introduction there in terms of how to create an app. So before we move on, does anyone have any questions at all? No. Okay, so I'm just going to reopen the app that we were in a few seconds ago. We'll return to it in a short while, but what we want to do first of all is just talk about some more detailed concepts relating to our Canvas apps and just touch upon some of the different features and capabilities before we then do another demonstration. So we want to just discuss some of the different basic and common elements that we work with in a Canvas app. And then we'll touch upon some of the different ways in which we can customize the app and also how we can manage the app and start to sort of get it shared out and manage things such as the version history and other things like that. So we need to have a good appreciation of the following different basic elements that are related to our Canvas apps. And this is going to be particularly important for the exam as well. So first of all, we need to know about the Powerapps Studio. So we should hopefully after that demonstration have a bit of a experience as to how of what that is. The idea behind the Studio is that it's a web-based tool that we can just log into from any browser. So we don't need to download any sort of development tools. Don't need to download things like Visual Studio. We can just jump into any browser session and start building out our app. So again, it really sort of reduces the barrier of entry there when it comes to creating an app for the first time. We need to have an appreciation for the different app formats. So you may have noticed that earlier when we were creating the apps, there are options to be able to create it as either a mobile or a tablet-based view. As the name implies on there, the app will then adjust its general sort of screen size and experience so that it is appropriate for the device type that we're wanting to work with. And as part of that, we'll have different options that we can then customize to maybe make it more suited for maybe an iPad or maybe an Android or maybe a Surface type device. As the name implies, mobile view will present the app in a sort of portrait mode, whereas tablet will be landscape view. Next, we've got our galleries, and this will be the most common way in which we work with multiple different rows of data from our underlying data source. As part of this, we can look to customize how these records are displayed in the particular sort of gallery and customize it further. Maybe we could add in an image, add in some different sort of text. Really just depends in terms of what we want to do there. And then we can also customize the different columns and fields that appear in there, and also adjust the different sort of design elements. So maybe add in maybe some different buttons, add in some different shapes. It's really just up to us. Then for each row in our particular data set, it will render that out in a consistent fashion. Forms, as the name implies, allows us to expose out information from a specific row. So we can maybe edit, view, or perhaps even delete a particular record. Again, we can customize the look and feel of that, add on different sort of columns, add on different elements, add on a variety of different buttons that can perform different actions. Again, it's really just up to us in terms of how we want to control that. Our forms will typically contain any number of different input controls. And again, we've got quite a bit of flexibility there in terms of how we customize all of that. So we can add in things like date pickers, we can add in sliders, buttons, drop downs. We can add these in not only to our forms, but also to our galleries as well, or indeed any screen within our particular app. Each of these different input controls will have a variety of different settings that we can customize. So we can change things like the formatting, we can change the default data that's presented, really just get that experience really sort of idealized and suited for a particular requirement and have that really nice control over how it all looks. We've got intelligent controls. These perform sort of more advanced capabilities, so we can do things like having a barcode scanner. We can have a GPS. We can maybe bring in more advanced functionality via AI builder capabilities, various different things like that. And then finally, we've got this formula language of functions, the Powerfx formula language that we can use. And this is effectively the glue that's going to bind together our entire app. And we'll typically need to go in and think about writing quite a few different sort of functions that are going to move users between our different app screens, perform specific actions, and do a variety of other things. As we mentioned, this language is Excel-like in terms of you can generally infer, what the name of the function will be based on the type of action you're trying to do. But it's worth just mentioning that it's not a one-for-one. There will be some key differences behind that. So you may need just to spend some time just learning more details about the Powerfx formula language, just so you feel adequately equipped to use it. And as I say, knowledge of Powerfx over your time using the Power Platform is going to become incredibly important, I would say. So as we mentioned, the studio we can navigate into from the Maker portal. We just go into the appropriate area, and then we can see an example on here for a more complex app type in terms of how that would look and how we can customize that a bit further. We can see that if we're creating an app for the very first time, these are the different options we can see. So we can start with our existing data and create an app using the phone layout. Alternatively, we can create a blank app, and again, we've got options there to be able to choose between either the phone and the tablet layout. As I mentioned, our galleries will show us all of our different sort of data in there, and we can customize the general look and feel of all of that. Forms will be for the situation we're focusing on. And again, we can see here we've got control over the fields and the columns that we're adding on here, including where they're located on the particular form. For our input controls, we've got a variety of different options that we can select from, which is really beneficial. Intelligent controls can include not only things like our barcode scanners and other elements, but also things like AI builder capability. So what we could look to do is maybe bring in a custom prediction model. We could perform some text classification, also maybe do some image detection as well. Be able to sort of feed in some different images and then be able to tag those objects accordingly. And again, all of this can be built and managed via the Maker portal. We don't need to get a developer involved to build or maintain any of this for us. And finally, as we mentioned, we've got our Powerfx formula language and a variety of different functions available to us, or different sort of elements that I should say. So the key things will be things like our functions. So we can do things like maybe returning the square root of a number. We can do things like, for example, submitting a form. We can navigate users to another screen, various different action-based things that would fit under the category of our functions. We can also return signals, which will be information points about the current environment. So we could, for example, use the location to return the current GPS coordinates. These signals typically don't take any parameters and don't have any side effects. We've got the concept of enumerations, which is effectively just a predefined set of constant values. So for example, we can define different sort of colors for our controls just by typing in color dot and then the name of the particular color that we want. Our canvas apps will include a common set of different enumerations and then maybe more function specific ones that we come across from time to time. And then finally, we'll have named operators, which will typically work in a particular context. So for example, on a form, we can use this item to be able to get information about the current record in the form, be able to, for example, display out the value of a column or maybe show a property related to something in the current context. And then finally, parent is where we can go out into the parent, when we're typically working in a container, go out to the parent record or to something else. So the general flow of process when it's sort of creating an app for the first time will look a little bit like this. We typically go in, connect to a data source. We'd use that to maybe build out the initial look and feel of our application. We do some initial exploration of that. We can then look to maybe install that into our particular environment. Then it might be from there we want to do some additional customization of the app to suit our particular scenario. Let's spend just a few moments now just looking at some of the common things that we might want to do to our app using the existing one that we built as an example. So it could be that maybe we want to have it so that there's an additional sort of screen that we want to add onto our app that we can navigate users out into. So maybe, I don't know, maybe an instruction screen or something like that. So what we can do is maybe add in a new blank screen like so at the top. That's one way in which we could do it. Another alternative, if we wanted to maybe maintain consistency over how our app sort of looks and feels, we can maybe duplicate an existing screen like so. That's going to copy the entire screen, including all components, into a brand new screen down there. So I'll just delete this one down here like so, because I'm not going to use it. I want to give this maybe a rename, so maybe just call this maybe my info screen. And from here, I just want to maybe remove some of the different components on here. So we're not going to need the gallery control. We don't really want the rectangle there. Search, we don't want the search or the search inbox. But everything else, maybe these 3 buttons as well, we don't want. So now we've just got the header on the app like so. There's a small issue with the formula there, which we just need to be able to fix. So let me just change that to a manual properties. Daisy. And let me just change that again like so. Just fix that. Again, I'll just change this to, yep, that's okay. On my initial screen, I want to maybe add in a button that's going to navigate me to the other screen. So I'm just going to adjust the size of the gallery like so. So I can see I can very easily just do that from within the WYSIWYG type editor. And at the top of here, I'll see an option for insert, and this is where we can find all the various different component types that we can add into our application. So for example, we can maybe add in, a text input or text label. We can add in a gallery, forms, media controls, some visualization types if we wanted to, and then finally a whole host of different sort of icons. In this case, just want to add on a button to the app like so. I'll just maybe place it down here in the center. Maybe rename this button and just call it maybe about this app, like so, and we can see that gets renamed straight away. Then for this particular control, I just need to be able to adjust the on select event, so it's going to take me across into the other screen. So I can do this just by removing the false on here in the formula bar. I can just type in navigate like so. Then going to ask me for the name of the screen, so I'll just call this info screen. Just need to put a just like so, and then I just need to specify the transition if I wanted to. So just remember what I think it's screen transition. Sorry, just give me a moment. It seems to have frozen. So I'll just do a cover transition like so. And now I can just give this a test. I could even just hit the play button at the top like that just to test that. Alternatively, what I could do, if I hold down the Alt key, I can actually interact with the app in the WYSIWYG editor. So I can then just click this like so, and we can see it then works. It then takes me back into this particular screen. Maybe I just need to have a back button at the top like so, so that we can return the user to the previous screen. So in this case, I can maybe just select an icon from up here. Select the left one like so, move it to the top and maybe just increase the size of it. Maybe we want to make it a nice sort of white color so it shows up well there. And again, I can, on the on select event, I could maybe do something like back like so. As the name implies, that's going to take me back into the previous screen. And we just give that just a test like so, and just confirm that all works. And maybe on this page, just want to add in some text controls, maybe just do something like a label of some kind. And then maybe type in, this screen provides information about this app and also demonstrates some other capabilities relating to Canvas apps. Okay, and just adjust that like so, stretch it out, and then it's all looking how we want it to. If we wanted to, we can maybe add on some more advanced sort of input types. So we could maybe do something like maybe having a drop down with this different items. We can maybe add an address input control. We'd also maybe bring in some AI builder capabilities as well, which is quite nice. So maybe we could do something like add in maybe a business card scanner or reader. So just add that in like so. This is a premium component, so we are given a warning. And in this case, what we want to do is maybe just test out some of the functionality within the business card reader. So I'm just going to add in maybe some attributes on here that are going to render out based on when we scan the business card. So I'll maybe just do something like I'll need to select the name of the component. So I'll do business card reader 1. And we'll see there'll be a variety of different properties that we can read from that. So maybe I just want to have maybe the company name as the first attribute that shows. Let's give that a second. We can maybe just do a concatenation here just to show some empty text. Let's give that a second. Seems to have frozen again. So maybe do something like name. Like so. Let's just check that now. Is that correct? Let me just check that's right. Not sure what's going on there. Let me just change that to that maybe. Another way we could do it is something like this, perhaps. Do that instead. Seems to be using up a bit too much. Might need to give it a refresh, but let's just add on a few more before we just do a quick scan of the business card. No, there's something funky going on here, so let's just reload. Okay, hopefully it's loaded now. Okay. Okay, let's just quickly, I'll just add on the business card reader again. Okay, let's add on some labels. So do something like company name, reader 1.company. Do something like that. And then actually, let's try the concat. Doesn't seem to be liking that. See if it'll work this time. It's not liking it today for some reason. So just give that a second. We might have to abandon this demo. Okay, so that seems to have done it. So let's just do the same for this one. So I'm just going to get maybe the address for this time, and then we'll find a business card just to scan. So maybe just do a full address as an example. Let's just rename this to address. Okay, let's give this a go. So we should have, or I should have a business card that I can scan somewhere. If not, let's find one on the good old internet. Okay, so I think we've got a good one here, maybe. Let's have a look at this one here. So I'll just scan this like so. There's a little bit cut off on there, but let's see if it can actually grab some of the details there. The address is visible and the name of the company is. Okay, so I think that's done a pretty good job there. So it's been able to grab the name of the company, Green Thumbs Landscaping, and also as well the full address in detail. So it's done a pretty good job there, even though it's all cut off. So this could be useful maybe if we've got some sort of trade show application, or maybe we're just wanting just to input in very quickly all of our business cards that we've got from an in-person conference, which may start happening again at the end of this year a lot more, all being well, and then we can just get the details scraped off and then input it into our system. As you can see, some really nice capability that we can start to do with our apps, and it becomes very easy for us to add on maybe these additional screens that start doing this different functionality. So that wraps it up for my demo there then. So does anyone have any questions before we move on? No problem. Okay, let's move on then. Just wrap up with a few additional topics relating to Canvas apps before we move on. Yeah, so as we talked about, functions, we're going to need to know about these quite extensively if we're wanting to, build out a full end-to-end application. These different formulas will form the cornerstone of our application. So it can be it can involve a bit of work just getting us to that particular point, but hopefully because the language is fairly similar to our typical sort of Excel-based sort of functions, it should be easy for us hopefully to grapple with this when we're faced with it for the first time. Those common type of functions that we work with will be things like filter, where we want to take data from an underlying source and maybe just apply some sort of criteria to the data that's returned. This can be quite useful just to ensure that we're only getting just the records that we want and not all of them, and can help with performance with our application. We can use the match function to check whether or not a value matches against a particular pattern that we determine. So therefore we can do things like making sure that an email is properly formatted before we then submit it into underlying data source. We can return a list of unique values from a list of data using the distinct function. So it makes it easier when building out dynamic drop-downs and things like that. And they've also got a variety of math-based sort of functions, so things like sum, average, min, max, the usual sort of the usual contenders there that we can sort of work with, as well as more complex ones such as attain and sin to work with radians. It's really impossible for us to spend any length of time during today to actually talk about each and every single function, but this hopefully gives you a flavor of the most sort of common ones. All of this is fully documented on Microsoft's website. The Powerfx formula language is now also open source on GitHub as well. So it's very easy for us to go off and actually find out more about these function types if we needed to. The final step that's once we've built an app for the first time is that we'll need to go out and share it. So as we saw in the demo earlier on, that's just a case just going out into the Maker portal, or when we've saved the app, clicking on the share button. We're then presented with a list of different users who currently have access to the app, and we can then grant additional access as we want, as we think is necessary. It's recommended that we try and use security groups where possible to manage this process. And as well, we can then tie these security groups back to our Dataverse environment. So it makes it a bit more easier for us to manage things and also to ensure that we can share things out from there. Once the app has been shared, it will then appear out in the Maker portal for the user, or if the user's got the Google Play or App Store app installed on their device, it'll also then appear in there. Now, just because we shared an app out doesn't necessarily mean that they will be able to work with the app for the first time. We also need to ensure that we have shared out any or we've given user permission to any underlying data source that our apps use. In some cases, these permissions may be granted out implicitly when we share the app for the first time, but there'll be some scenarios where we need to explicitly grant permissions. So Dataverse is a pretty good example of that. What we would need to ensure that we've done is that we've granted the user a security role in Dataverse which covers the set of tables and the set of objects that they plan to work with in the app itself. If we don't do that, then the user will likely get errors when they open the app for the first time. So the recommendation there is just to check the documentation for each connector that we're working with, and just make sure that we've done what's necessary to give users access to the data that they're working with. Let's move on now and discuss model-driven apps in a bit more detail, and again revisit some of these concepts in terms of what makes a model-driven app different from a Canvas app. And we'll see and discuss the various different building blocks of a model-driven app, and also how we can go about and create one. And we'll also see how we can change security and also share out model-driven apps as well. So as we touched upon already, the focus when it comes to building a model-driven app is that it's all around being a sort of component-focused approach, as opposed to needing a potentially lengthy app development process. So as we mentioned earlier, it can literally take just 5 to 10 minutes to build out a model-driven app for the first time. We can build out a very simple or maybe even more complex application. And for those more complex needs, we can potentially work with developers in an organization to extend them out further. Regardless of the type of model-driven app that we're trying to build, we'll typically need to give some consideration to the following three things first before we even start building out our app for the first time. The first is we need to make sure that we've modeled out our business data, and in particular that we've done so within Microsoft Dataverse. Because model-driven design uses a meta-driven architecture when it comes to building out our application, it's really important that we first of all determine what data our app will need to consume, and also how that data relates to others in there. And typically, as part of this, we'll need to have gone into Microsoft Dataverse and created the various different components that we spoke about earlier. Things like, for example, our custom tables, our relationships, and other elements. From there, we need to have some think about what is the process for a particular sort of business or a particular sort of area of the business. By ensuring that we've got a consistent process, we can help to ensure that our app users can focus on their work and not worry about having to remember or perform a set of manual steps each time. These processes could be maybe quite straightforward or quite complex, and it's very likely that they'll need to change over time. So again, make sure that we're clear, make sure that we've got a business process that can be mapped out cleanly in the system. From there, we can then think about building our app for the first time, and we go into our environment, and then we create the app, and we'll see the steps involved as part of that in a few moments. Our model-driven app is made up of several different components that we select and work with as we're building out the app in the app designer. All of these are effectively metadata when it comes to an app, model-driven app standpoint, as we configure them. So we've got, for example, our different sort of data, and this includes things like our tables, columns, and relationships that we can add into the model-driven app. We've got our user interface in the form of the app itself, the navigation experience, which is defined by the sitemap. And then within each table, we can define a variety of different set of forms and views that are presented to the end user. We can add in the different logic for application as well. So this is where our business rules would come into play a lot more. We can also add in things like a business process flow. We can maybe call out a Power Automate flow and other elements as well. And then finally, we can also look to add in a series of different visualizations that will typically feed off data that is in the underlying Dataverse environment, but could also be extended out to include things like, for example, Power BI content. It's very easy for us to add those in. And again, it just gives us a mechanism of being able to allow users to maybe have, for example, a dashboard that they go to that shows them all of the core information relating to our current app. So this is a look of the classic app designer, which we use quite a lot extensively. There is at the moment a new preview experience currently available that over time will replace this. But for now, you'll probably end up working with this area quite extensively. So we can see all the various different elements that make up the app included in here, right down to our forms and views, and also our sitemap and dashboards and various other elements. At any point as we're configuring the app itself, we can just sort of go in and give it a test drive by hitting the play icon at the top. And that then gives us the assurance that obviously that what we've built out is going to be fit for purpose. So at the moment in this experience, in this view, we don't get a sort of a WYSIWYG type experience. The new Studio preview experience does have that on there, if you did want to experiment and use that a bit further. So let's spend a few moments then just walking through the steps in terms of how we build out an app from start to finish. And we'll do this using some of the example components that we've already defined and built out. So I'm going to return back into the Maker portal and we're going to go into the solution that I created at the start of the day. So let's go into the PL-900 Bootcamp demos up here. I'm going to click on New at the top. I'm going to select App and then Model Driven App like so. And then for the purpose of this demo, I'm going to use the classic app designer. For the moment, most of the material and most of the exam content will still be based on that. So it's useful just to ensure that we follow this until the new experience comes out for preview. So I'll give this a name. I'll just call this my PL-900 sample app. I could also give it a description as well and other details such as maybe an image. What's quite nice is that I can base my app off an existing solution and automatically populate it with the tables that are already in there. So I'm going to select that option there like so and click on next. And then we should see in the list up here, my PL-900 solution, demo solution should be available. So there it is. Hit on the done button. And then we should see we'll have an app that has, I believe, 3 tables in there that we configured a short while ago. So yep, so we've got our contact, event details, and our session table like so. Once we've created our app for the first time, we first of all need to ensure that we've set up the sitemap, which is the navigation experience for application. And we can see we get an error up here that tells us that that is missing. So I'm just going to hit on the pencil icon like so we can start to build this out. So I just need to, so our sitemap is made up of 3 different sort of elements. We've got at the very top level our area, which allows us to have different set of options that the user can then click on and then view on the left-hand side of the navigation experience. Within the area, we can then have multiple groups, which are effectively just headings. Then underneath that, we've got individual sub areas for each of the different areas that we want to expose out in our application. So first in this demo, I'm just going to name this my, I'll just call this my sample area. And I'll call this my sample group, like so. It's typically recommended that we have at least one sub area that maybe presents out some different sort of dashboards. So I'll just sort of do that like so. So I'll just call this my dashboards like so. From there, if we click on the components tab, we can start to drag in additional sub areas. So I'm just going to add in 2 more. Actually, 3 more for each of the 3 tables that we've got in the app at the moment. Then all I need to do is just select each of these. It's going to be of type entity. Then in the list over here, I can then select, for example, my contact table. We can see the name automatically updates itself to the plural name, which is quite nice. I can add in my event demo like so. And then finally as well, we've then got the session table as well, which we'll just add in. And I can just continue just to add on additional sort of sub areas to suit my particular scenario. We can also add in links to external content or maybe to a web resource that a developer has built out if we wanted to for more advanced scenarios. But for now, I'm happy with how this all looks, so I can just hit on the save icon like so. I need to make sure my sitemap has been published. Then I can save and close that like so. Next, I need to think about adding on and maybe customizing the different elements in the app itself. So by default, we can see all dashboards will be made available. So every single dashboard in the Dataverse environment will be available for people to select. I can maybe customize that further by maybe just unticking that and just selecting the specific dashboards that I want. For the purposes, I'm just going to leave that blank, like so. I'm just going to select leave that as the default option, like so. I can also remove any tables that may have been added in by mistake. So maybe the activity table, I can click on remove just to get rid of it. One thing I might typically need to do is go in and just customize my different forms and views. And I can do this just by selecting forms. I can see I get a pencil icon on the right hand side over here. And then what I can do is then customize the form using the new sort of form designer experience. So we can see this experience is very similar to our Canvas app, but there are some differences in terms of the options available to us. We still get a nice little WYSIWYG type editor experience. And what I can do is maybe just add in some of the columns that maybe we created earlier. So maybe add in my attendees. Maybe I want to drag the owner and put it at the top right, like so. Maybe add on maybe my status as well. And just really customize the form to suit my particular requirements. When I'm happy, I can just save that like so at the top. I'll always need to make sure that I publish any changes to make sure they're reflective straight away in the environment. So I'll just do that now as well. Should only take a few moments. Okay, and then we can close that down, and then that form for that particular table is ready to go. If I wanted to, I could also create some new additional forms as well. Excuse me, and then what would happen is that when the user navigates onto a record, they'll then have the option of being able to switch between different forms if they wanted to. For the purpose of this demo, I'm just going to leave that one as blank, like I'm just going to leave that as just the single form. Likewise as well, I can customize the different views, and views are effectively will present a list of our particular sort of table data to end users. By default, we get a series of different views made available when we create a new custom table. And it might be I just want to go in and just do some additional customization to these views as well. So I'll just save my app, and then what we can do, similar to my forms, is click on the pencil icon. Then on here, maybe I can then add on some additional sort of properties. So maybe I just want to add on that attendees column that we mentioned before. Maybe move that up like so. I can change elements of this, such as how the data is being sort of sorted if I wanted to. Maybe add in data from related columns. I'm free just to customize this to suit my particular purposes. All views can have different filter criteria as well. So at the moment, this is just going to return event demos that equal active. I can maybe go on and add on additional filters against any different column type if I wanted to. But for now, I just want to just save this. And again, this will be a component that I just need to publish out. Save and close that. And then at this point, then I'm happy just to then give this app a bit of a test drive. And I can do this by hitting the publish icon at the top. And then once that's done, I can see the play icon becomes visible. And I can give this just a quick test drive to make sure it's working how I expect. So we can see the dashboards view is working. I can select from a variety of different dashboards that are deployed out into the environment based on my specific needs. I can see a list of all the different contacts like so. I can click onto event demos. I can see there's the new column that I added in. We can see that at the top, I've got various different sort of common options available to me. So I can delete new record, I can delete records, I can create new ones. I can maybe run a report, lots of different options which are provided for us automatically. Then same again at the form level, I can maybe just go into here. So maybe global Power Platform bootcamp as an example. Put in the attendees, so maybe 125. Save that like so. And I can see if I navigate back to the view over here, I've got a full list of all the. I can see all of the different records in here. Maybe add on some additional ones. Just continue working with the app in terms of how I want it, in terms of what is best for me. When I'm then ready to go, I can then start thinking about maybe sharing this app out to other particular users. So I can do this if I go into my model-driven apps down here. Select it in the solution. I've got an option here for share. And what I would need to do here is then determine, okay, which people do I want to share this app to? And also which security role do I need to assign them so they can access the app? And that's a two-step process. We need to share out both the app itself and ensure they've got a applicable security role set up in Dataverse so that they can access the underlying data. With that done, we can then our app is then usable, and then people in the organization can then find it in the list over there and they can start working with it. So that wraps it up for my demonstration that I wanted to do for model-driven apps. So before we just wrap up very quickly on some final points before we break for lunch, does anyone have any questions at all? No? Okay. So again, just to reiterate the steps there in terms of granting access out to model-driven apps. So as a first step, make sure that we've got an appropriate security role that we've created or we set up in the environment. We've got some out-of-the-box security roles that we can use. For example, the basic user one. So we can maybe just take that and just add on the required permissions that we need, then ensure that we've then assigned that to both the app and the user. From there, we can then share out the application by sort of ensuring that we've associated the security roles and also assigned the end user the appropriate security role to access the underlying data. From there, we can then just provide the user with a direct link to the app, simply just by copying and pasting the link that we saw when we were giving the app a test drive a few moments ago. Then, provided they've met all the prerequisites from an access standpoint, they can then go in, access and work with this application and the new underlying data in there. And that, in a nutshell, is everything we wanted to talk about when it comes to model-driven apps. So when we get back from the lunch break, we're